Hi, my name is Dylan Barbic, and this is my persuasive speech. The general purpose of this speech is to persuade my audience that immediate action is needed to support the U.S. national parks, which are currently underfunded and understaffed, despite record visitation rates to these beautiful places. And my other purpose is to motivate my classmates to take correct action for their preservation. The U.S. National Park Service has lost nearly a quarter of the workforce, which we didn't have a very big workforce to begin with anyway, so that's very significant. And archaeologists and ecologists are now cleaning bathrooms just to keep the parks, such as Yellowstone, Sequoia, Yosemite, open. These parks are under severe strain, even as they record historic visitations. This affect this affects everything from the safety of the park to the overall cleanliness and wellness of the park as well, and impacts our ability to conserve them. As someone who deeply values public lands, and I personally love going to national parks and seeing the sights and seeing nature and being out there, it in my research, I've seen the current challenges facing national parks, and I believe implementing solutions can make a real difference. The U.S. national park system is facing a crisis of underfunding, understaffing, undermining visitor safety, the ecological integrity of the land still, and the infrastructure. We must ask, act now if we're going to protect these lands in the future because they are irreplaceable. In the summer of 2025, staff shortages forced archeolo- archaeologists and ecologists, sorry, stuttering, into roles like ticketing and cleaning bathrooms. Park staff are stretched dangerously thin. Over 1,000 NPS probationary employees were laid off in the February of 2025, right before the peak season of spring. This was done by the current administration. At Teton and Yosemite, service hours were reduced, campsites were completely closed, and visitor centers were stuttered. In 2023, the national parks contributed a record of $55.6 billion to the U.S. economy and supported over almost 500,000 jobs, making their preservation vital, just not just for our environment, but also for our economy and for the U.S. Department of Interior. Oh, but economically for the U.S. Department. Since 2012, NPF staffing has dropped 13%, while visitation grew 10%. And the 2024 budget actually reduced NPS funding to 150 million from the prior year. The 2025 proposed plan cuts from 2.667 billion to 1.8 billion, nearly a third of the budget, including dramatic reductions in natural resources, 95%, and cultural programs, which was 60%. National parks mean so much to so many people, yet this is clearly not reflected in the House's bill, said Kristen Pringle, NPCA's Senior VP of Government Affairs, National Parks Conservation Association. The steps we can take to keep our parks safe and make sure we preserve them for as long as possible is contact Congress, to urge the restoration of funding and full staffing to these national parks. You can donate to nonprofits like the National Park Foundation, which fund infrastructure, education, and stewardship efforts. And you can also volunteer at our national parks to give back and help us preserve these beautiful lands. And we can always be responsible visitors. Practice our leave no trace, carry out your trash, and especially since our ranger capacities are low. Overall, funding and staffing shortfalls are jeopardizing our national parks, threatening safety, ecosystems, heritage, and local economies. But we can take meaningful action to help. Staffing and funding reductions are creating serious consequences. These problems are rooted in our political budgetary decisions, which is not fair. We can help through advocating for our want to keep these national parks here. The politicians listen to us. Volunteering and just being mindful when we visit. Anyway, thank you for listening to my speech. I hope you have a great day.